This is a 2021 Nissan Navara NP300 pickup that I recently bought, and I've just adjusted the tailgate so there's less rattle in it, but now the latch isn't unlocking it. I have to pull that handle all the way up to release the latches, and it's because those latches there aren't going in enough and they need to go in a little bit further. So that's what I'm going to try to fix in this video. So first off, we've got to take this cover off, and this is held on with 6 of these self-tapping screws. However, I'm missing 2. So does anyone know where you can get those from? Because I've been looking and I can't find them anywhere. But then also the bottom edge is held on with sticky pads all along here. So I could probably not remove those, because next we just got to get inside this cover. But I think I'm going to tear that for now, because that's going to be fairly easy to replace. So that is just a piece of self-adhesive tape running along there. And then there's a single screw to remove either end of this plate. And then there's 6 plastic spacers which should be stuck down, but any that aren't, you're going to want to pick up, because you don't want to lose them on the ground. And then we can get inside here and have a look at this latch. So already I've noticed one issue. That is loose. I guess that should be up there. So that is my lock. So that wasn't working. I didn't know that. But anyway, these are fixed bars. So we basically want to make these bars shorter. So we could bend them, and that will make them shorter, and that will make that pull that in tighter. Or they are on a thread, so they are adjustable. So if that can come out of there, which I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to get that out of there, but if we can unhook that out of there, we can then turn this on the thread and then get it back. But quite how you twist that out of there, I'm not sure. Unless I take all the lock out, that's probably the way. But anyway, I'll have a little play with this and see if I can work out the best way of adjusting these bars. But we basically want those bars to be a little bit shorter, so that latch comes in by a few millimeters, and then when you pull the handle, it's going to pull that latch in further, which is going to solve the problem. I've seen on YouTube what someone else has done to achieve this is to pack out the gap between the metal rod and the nylon base that it sits in, so basically filling that gap there, and they've used a bolt. So what you could do is put a bolt or a screw in there so it's threaded into the nylon, and that is effectively shortening that rod and increasing that gap. But I'm going to see if I can find a better way than that. So undoing the latch doesn't release it from that. You cannot turn the latch to get the rod out of this end. And it looks like the plastic clips here are a latch over type clip. So you should be able to release it here to then get the rod out. And basically I just want to turn that rod by say 2 revolutions, so then that bent end is still back up the right way, and I'll just measure the thread on the back here, but just sort of get the rod 2 or 3 revolutions back that way, which will make it a little bit tighter. The thing I'm worried about though is when you try to undo these plastic latches here, whether they break, because if they break, you've buggered it. And when plastic is old, it gets brittle, and you tend to find when you open clips like this, they just break. So I'm going to warm this up with a hot air gun to make it a bit more malleable. And when you're not sure how a bit of plastic works, whether that's a clip, a bracket, or an electrical connector, warming it first can make all the difference, and it might just save you breaking it. So there we go, I managed to open that without breaking it. So they hinge at the top there, and you've got to wider, flatter edge on that side, which is the side you've got to lever from. And the way you do it is push the tag there at the same time as leaving that up. But I did warm it all up first so it didn't break. And you can see it does have some thread in there. But anyway, we can then remove that and turn it. But what I'm going to do first is just mark the thread here so I know how many times I've rotated it and moved it. So I've put some masking tape there so I know how much thread was sticking out the plastic latch there before I started. And it's now just a case of simply pulling the rod and resitting it down. But what I need to do first is just to bolt the latch all back in place so there's no play there, and then just decide how much tension I want to apply on that before pushing that back down in the plastic. So I put the 2 bolts back in with some new thread lock on them so they don't come undone. So it's now just a case of deciding how much you want to pull this in, and it's not going to be much. You really just want to take the slack out of it and maybe add 1 or 2 millimeters. So I think about that, so probably 3 threads. And we can test this before we latch that back down by pulling on the latch, because the rod is still moving there, and we can look at the latch. And when the latch is shut, there is about a 1 millimeter gap between the nylon latch there and that rubber. And then when I pull on the handle, that's almost disappearing into the bodywork. And we can compare it with the other side. When I pull on the handle, there's about 6 millimeters sticking out. So I'm happy with that, and I've moved it along by 3 threads on this side. So I can snap that back down and now do the same on the other one. So on the next one, I don't really need to put any tape on the threads. We can just pull that a few threads down, push that back in, and then just check that this is looking right at this end. So that's looking okay. I can snap that back down and then we can try it. That is so much better. So I'm happy with that. So we just got to put it back together now. So that just involves putting that metal plate back down here, and those black plastic spacers, there was a couple of those, 3 of those I think, which weren't stuck down, so I might dap a bit of glue on there. And then ideally you want to replace this self-adhesive tape, but as I haven't torn this off completely, I think for now that's holding down well enough for what I need. So I think that's a job well done. This tailgate feels so much better. So if you found this video useful, please do click the thumbs up, that really does help. And if you want to see other videos on the Nissan Navara, in the video description below will be a link to a playlist where you can see other videos I made, but plenty more coming soon. Okie doke, I'll see you on the next one. The videos I make on this channel are primarily to help others and share knowledge. If you found a video helpful, please show your appreciation by at least clicking the thumbs up button, and leaving a comment also helps too, as does subscribing to the channel. All of this is free of charge. I do not use paid memberships or Patreon, which is how most YouTubers earn their money. I only earn from the YouTube ad commissions. But under every video on this channel is a super thanks button. So if you found a video particularly useful, or maybe it saved you money or time, then please consider a donation using the super thanks button. You could buy me a coffee, a pint, or contribute to the running cost of this channel. There's over 1100 videos on this channel now, so please have a browse, use the search, and have a look at the playlists.